Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm back again with another hashtag. I am loving the tags that are going around in the community at the moment, and I'm feeling a lot more drawn to them than I had been maybe last year. This hashtag is gettoknowyourwitches, and it was created by Little Cosmic Crow. This tag has been going around in a big way and I am loving it. I am very thankful to Little Cosmic Crow, who I went and watched her video and I've subscribed to her channel. I'm looking forward to getting to know her more. And also it's just bringing so many other people out of the woodwork. It's really easy to find people through hashtags on YouTube and I really enjoy that aspect about it. As so many people who I already enjoy and follow had jumped in on this tag too, I built up the nerve and decided to join in. It's a bit of a heads up, this is more of a podcast type thing for anyone who's new to the channel. I don't show my face on YouTube. If you want to get to know me on a bit more of a personal level, then feel free to come over to my Instagram. I will try and make the video interesting and show a few photos whilst we go along. One of the reasons that I guess I had to build up this nerve to do this tag is not because that the questions were difficult, but because I hadn't considered myself a massive part of the witchy community yet. It took me a really long time to come around to defining what witch meant to me, and it is something I'll discuss in one of the tag questions. And so in some ways there's many parts of practice over the years and my lifespan that will add to my definition of being a witch, but at the same time I feel like a fledgling in so many ways. My practice in more of a witchy aspect isn't such a big part of my YouTube, and so this is probably gonna maybe even surprise a few people that I jumped in. I don't know, but I'm really excited to join in and find more witchy channels to follow as well. Jumping straight in, question number 1 is, does my sun sign portray me correctly, and if not, do my other planetary signs? Astrology isn't my strongest suit and it's not a massive part of my practice, but I feel like I've studied enough of my own chart to have at least a decent understanding. My sun sign is certainly something that people often guess and they're correct. So my sun and my rising is Leo. Lots of people always tell me that they're not surprised. However, as I'm getting older, I feel more connected to my Scorpio moon. It seems to be something that I resonate with on a deeper level. I don't know if it's something to do with that people aren't readily invited to see that more Scorpio aspect of me until maybe we're closer, whereas the Leo characteristics are ones that I'm either more comfortable with or they seep out of me no matter what. Of course there are bits that I don't resonate with, but some of the things I would say I feel fall under that Leo sun is the whole fiery feistiness. I can definitely be bossy sometimes, a little bit of a control freak, and proud. On a more beneficial note, I'm definitely loyal as fuck. It is incredibly important to me, and I'm sure that that's not individual to just being a Leo, but I know that it's considered an aspect. I value finding my individuality. That's been a really important part of my growth. And despite being an introvert, I do still have moments where I really enjoy being the centre of focus. It has to, of course, be on my terms, and it just takes a long time to recharge alone after. So a bit of a mixed bag, and I'm sure there's a lot more for me to learn. Also, I get kind of caught with these questions because looking at the sun sign alone feels kind of bland to me, and at the moment I'm completely obsessed with exploring the various facets of everything. I understand it more on a grander scale, looking at all the signs and where they are, as opposed to just one. But as a whole, it seems that I'm pretty Leo. Question 2 is, what songs bring me the most magical vibes? I found this one almost impossible to answer, and mainly because there are so many genres of music and styles that I enjoy. I would be here listing things forever. There's no one that encompasses this. It really depends on my mood, what I am trying to engage with. Music was a huge part of my upbringing as well. There are lots of musicians in my family. My dad was a musician. Oh, so many of my siblings can play instruments. I'm not the best on instruments. I can do a little bit. But because of that ear for music and because of growing up around musicians and DJs and things like that, it got really eclectic, and music definitely runs through our souls, I guess. One thing that did come to mind, however, is that a lot of the time, if I'm in sort of ritual and I'm not looking for a specific musician or a genre, then I really love listening to drumming. Like, drumming just gets me engaged with that wild part of myself and is something that I really enjoy. Chuck in some flutes or some other ambient noise and I am there for it. Some of the music genres that I listen to in my magical practice, just to give you an idea, can be anything from garage or house music, acoustic chilled vibes, indie, grunge, classical music, and literally all that's in between. So, big music lover. Question 3, which one of my deities, guides, or ancestors is most sarcastic with me? And if it doesn't apply, which one of my tarot and oracle decks? It's probably not going to be a surprise to those who already know me that I don't have deity or ancestral guides that I work with in that way, other than if you want to consider the animal medicine that I work with on a regular basis. And obviously I work with nature as a whole, but even when I work with animal medicine, there's no one animal guide that I've felt particularly sarcastic. I am a firm believer that we often give the voice to our decks and not the other way around as well. I don't see them as a separate entity, but at the same time, obviously, there is specific artwork that lends itself to being perceived that way or that feels that way for me. And definitely, if I think of sarcastic or even sassy, kind of dry wit, then the deck that I think of where I read it that way is certainly the Tarot del Fuego. That deck is full of sass, even in its visual depictions, and it's a deck that I've often found myself reading it that way because I can't help myself. It is just a wonderful sort of energy that emits from that artwork. Question 4 asks, what is my biggest witchy mess up or misinterpretation? It took me a while to think of this one. It really boils down to more of a misinterpretation and is not very interesting for others, I'm sure, but for me it was a lot about not feeling qualified as a witch, like there's someone who makes the rules. But what happened was I was losing my personal identification in it and really just getting into other people's belief structures or rules, and obviously that's not organic, that's not a natural place to find yourself. Whilst obviously you try things when you're learning to see if they work for you or not, it felt a bit more than that for me. It felt like trying to meet this specific requirement or one of the various witch types where I could fit in a box. which isn't very me anyway. I guess my thirst for learning led to all of this internal pressure. That was kind of a stopping point for me. I feel like I potentially alienated myself as opposed to defining my own relationship with what being a witch means to me and looks like for me in my practice. Since that point, it's been something that I'm slowly developing into and feeling it out and feeling as though I can see what that means for my practice and my craft in an organic way as a representation of me and not what someone else was selling. So that's actually been quite a big deal, and certainly is a misinterpretation that I don't think I'm alone in, but I haven't heard lots of other people say that. I guess it depends how you come into your practice. Question 5 is, would I write a book on my craft or spirituality, and why, if I already have? What were my challenges in doing so? I've definitely never written a book, and I feel like whilst I can never say never, at this time in my life it feels highly unlikely. What I do feels like my own internal brand. It's like a niche, and I'm not sure that that would necessarily appeal to the masses. I'm also not sure what a book about that particular niche of mine would actually offer people that isn't already being offered already, other than to say, you do you. I appreciate getting different voices within these things. I just don't feel like I have anything to offer on that kind of scale right now. Also, if you've ever read a book where it feels like the publishers forced or rushed the person to create it, I don't know about you, but I often find they are lacking. I recognise that my craft and my practice is something individual for me, and it is not tied to my work. It would need to be a really well thought out career decision. I feel that I'd much more likely write something in the future to do with psychotherapy or even a biography or an exploration of some sort, sharing an essay, than anything to do with my craft. That could change in years to come. Who knows where I'm going to be? As I say, I never say never, but right now it's not going to happen, and I'm pretty sure that no one's going to be disappointed, so it's all good. Question 6. If someone wanted to summon me to their circle, what 5 items would they need? I have loved this question the most, I have to say. I've really enjoyed it. It's been fun and amusing listening to everyone's random objects or requirements. To summon me, and I have thought about this in too much depth, I'd like you to have some dirt first. So if you have got a garden or you're close to woods or something, to go out and really get your nails dirty and grab some fresh soil. And if you're a city witch or whatever, just some soil out of a plant pot. I'm not fussy. The second thing, I love chocolate. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a pretty big sugar fan in general, but I would be incredibly easy to lure this way. Technically, I'm dairy free, so extra props to you for making an effort if you do, but I do, to my own detriment, occasionally stray from this, so there are no hard and fast rules. I was having to think about how easily I wanted to be summoned, and figured that if someone wants to summon me, then they can put in the extra effort. So, as I love creativity, an offering along those lines would be awesome. This is where you can get creative and consider whether you play an instrument, sing, write a poem, draw a picture. There will be no judgments, I promise. If you don't feel artistically inclined, especially, But I'm a true believer that everyone has something creative up their sleeves. So whatever creative offering you would like to bring to the table. As drumming really sets my soul alight, and I find it really just primal, and I love the idea of people just cutting loose. That's going to really call to me. So whether that is a drumming CD or you're actually drumming, that would be awesome. That is my fourth. Finally, my fifth, and it kind of brings an image together, but it's not required, is fire. Now, if this was all going on around a campfire, that would be amazing. Again, it's not a prerequisite, any kind of fire. If you can only get candles, that's okay. I've always felt really mesmerised by flames and smoke, the whole experience. Whilst it can be calming sometimes, it also gives me a bit of a rush. And there's a bit of a inside joke between my loved ones that I'm a fire starter. They are my 5 things. I have to say, I will, however, reserve the right to say no whenever I feel that the reason that you've summoned me isn't for me. I'll show up, but whether I'm up for playing is a completely different matter. Question 7 asks, if I were a ghost, what place would I haunt? I have to be honest, the thought of being stuck as a ghost in one place after I die really isn't appealing to me. I know that that's boring. It's those feelings of confinement for forever. However, I will be a good sport, and I did think of somewhere like the Tour at Glastonbury. I like that it's got gorgeous views, lots of space for me to frequent on my ghostly travels. Maybe I could even pop to the Chalice-Well Gardens to break up my ghosting. People come and play music up in the Tour, which is gorgeous. The acoustics are wow, just wow. You get a lot of different types of people visiting there, and there are times that it is still quite empty, which would be nice. I wouldn't want to be stuck around people all the livelong day. There's lots of wildlife, and finally there's still the potential to scare people, which, look, in reality, I am that annoying friend who hides behind your cupboard for 10 solid minutes just so that I can get a good scare in. Whilst my body might not permit so much anymore, if I was a ghost and I was able to haunt, I would totally get some scares in just to pass the time and just to make an old ghost laugh. So definitely somewhere like that. Question 8. What is the funniest way someone has reacted to finding out I'm a witch? I've got no funny stories, I'm afraid. Most of the people I'm close with are supportive, or they're either uninterested or don't know. When people find out and they're not more of the supportive spectrum, they often just say something like, well, I'm not surprised, you've always been a bit different, which is cool. I'm totally fine with being odd in their eyes. I have a much smaller amount of people in my life nowadays as well in comparison to when I was younger, so it really boils down to less potential for telling people, I guess, but no funny stories to share. Question 9 is, do I have any superstitions? This is short and sweet, which is good because I feel like I've been rambling. I simply don't have any superstitions, and I don't put stock in any of them personally. Question 10. If I could possess any fantasy magic, what would my power be? Oh, I've toyed with some over the years. If we're talking real fantasy magic, then I would love to be a shapeshifter and be able to take any animal form. Like, that's my fun answer. I have to say, as I've got older and I've been faced with long-term health stuff, my ability to answer those things has changed because if I could possess a magical power, I would love to be able to heal chronic conditions and terminal conditions. And I know that that is a bit of a heavy answer, but I wanted to include it as well because it is the first thing that came to my mind. In reality, it's quite a selfish one, but I feel like it would benefit others too. So I kind of cheated and shared 2 with you. 11, what is something random on my altar? I couldn't really think of anything particularly random. However, I sometimes keep little toy animals on there if I'm working with an animal medicine that I happen to have a toy to represent. And my fairy lights aren't really random, but they are purely there for my aesthetical joy and no other reason. 12. If one of the YouTubers I watch was a genie and they could grant me 3 wishes within their power, who would it be and what wishes? The caveat is it can't be for more wishes. I'm assuming because it says within their power that I am then not asking for anything particularly magical or out of the realms of human possibility. I found it difficult to stick to one person, and also out of the people I mentioned, not all of them are necessarily witches. I don't know, but I'd love someone like Carrie Malin. I hope I'm saying that correctly, her last name. Kellyanne Maddox, Jessie Huntenberg, just to name some off the top of my head, to share their years of knowledge within their respective practices. I know that they already do that in bits and pieces, but imagine getting a one-to-one download with them almost. I think that that would be really fucking fascinating. The second wish would be for them to continue making content, because I've heard that others suggest that on their VRs, and I think that that would be really, really great, because obviously if I'm wanting these people as genies, then I clearly watch and enjoy their content and value their voices. The third one is me just being me and not being able to just have fun without thinking about things seriously. My third wish, to free them as a genie, because I can't help but think that genie life would suck and it would be nice to save the last one for them. 13. If I could instantly become an expert in any part of my craft or spirituality, what would it be? I'm sure everyone's going to have an eye roll moment, but I just wanted to add, I don't personally resonate with the word expert. I do fully believe that you become a professional, and that with certain things, your training, time, qualifications, etc. will add to that. In the same way, I don't really resonate with perceiving yourself as an expert in your craft, because I see us to always be learning, and I think that that's more of a humbling way of looking at it. But I'm all for getting a shit ton of extra info, experience, and things like that under my belt. So if I get an instant wish, I'd really love a deeper rooting and understanding of herbalism. It was something that I would have grown up around more and been taught more, but due to circumstances that didn't happen. I'd really love to have that solid foundation of how to use the herbs and plants around me. And whilst I'm at it, if I could have a green thumb too, that would be fabulous. I regularly work with nature and animals and their medicine, but when it comes to actually planting and caring for these things, unless it's a cactus, spider plant, or something else that's supremely hardy, like my buddleia, then I'm not great at it. 14 is, when I die, what do I think will happen to myself or my soul? I grapple with this concept on a regular basis. I find myself very torn and contemplating this a lot, actually, to find an idea that I'm able to connect with. I like to think that the soul is able to be separate from our physical being, and therefore something that can exist in another way. However, in honesty, I find myself falling into a space of being unable to fully trust these ideas because obviously I have no certainty or experience of it. For a witch or a tarot reader, I don't feel like I'm that woo, I guess, for want of a better term. I value that we don't know everything. Of course, there's always possibilities outside what we can conceive imaginable, because apparently we're only using 10% of our brains, which is not a lot, people. However, I find myself being very scientific and factual, and what happens is I end up falling into this awkward space in the middle. I think that when we die, we're gone, and it's quite a grounding and sometimes scary thought, but that is my honest thoughts at this time. A part of me is desperately hopeful that I'm wrong and that our souls somehow resides in another way, or they're renewed or reincarnated. And I'm not saying that I've never explored these avenues or thought about them or wished for them, but in honesty, I haven't solidified another belief at this time. You know, I do hope that I feel differently eventually, but that's where I am right now. The final question is, where do I see myself spiritually in the next 5 years? I'd like to see myself going on much as I am now, but of course this continually evolving. I'm really passionate about retaining the joy in my practice and focusing on whatever aspects bring me joy at that time. So as I see it in a constant state of flux, this will evolve organically. I don't have a set view of it. I know that my tarot will continue in being the solid foundation that it is now. And maybe in 5 years' time, it will have blended even further into my career or my practice as I continue to explore the avenues of how those two things lead into each other. In 5 years, I'd like to feel like less of a fledgling and explored my craft in much fuller ways, developing and, of course, learning more information as I go. Continuously indulging in the joy that is animal medicine, and maybe by then I will have branched off into some more herbal roots as well. There you have it, guys. I'd like to say a really big thank you again to Little Cosmic Crow for creating this and for allowing me to find so many community members. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below if you've listened along. And if you have joined in or you're planning to join in, then give me a heads up also, and I'll be sure to add you to my watch list because I'm really enjoying listening to everyone's answers. I'm going to finish there because I've rambled for long enough. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys again soon.